Hi, boys and girls. I am back with your word study, reading, and writing lesson for today. So these are going to be short, so it's not as much as we do in the classroom, but you do have packets, hopefully, that you have picked up. I meant to mention that you can pick up your packet from 8 to 1 starting tomorrow at the school. Have mom or dad ring the bell, and they will bring your packet to you. There's lots of scholastic news in there, so there's lots of really cool animal ones and some math practice and some synonyms and everything we've been working on this year. There's a little bit of that. So for word study, your words are already in Google Classroom, and I gave them to you last week, so you already have them at home. So I was a little ahead of game there. So we're working on these patterns. AW says aw, like in straw. And you can see you've got a triple blend, and then you've got your pattern, aw. Okay? And then we have OW, which says ow, like in clown. You have a digraph, CL, cl, ow, and you can break them down that way. So that's your pattern, and you can go to spellingtraining.com if you can't get in Google Classroom, and there's free practice on there. You just type in the words from their list. They already have in their agenda. If you don't have it in their agenda, make sure you go to Google Classroom and get that list. So that is your spelling pattern for this week. Now, I have a treat for you. I had to go up in my attic and find some books that I love. And this one is called Mercy Watson to the Rescue by Kate Dicamillo. I'm going to read a little bit of it to you today. And there's a couple of words that you'll need to know before we get going. And the first one is porcine. Porcine means pig-like. And if you've ever heard of a I don't know where they use this word porcine, honestly, but it's in the book. And we're going to decide if this book is fiction, nonfiction, what kind of fiction it is. If it is fiction, kind of looks like fiction, doesn't it? Because we see drawings. And these are great illustrations by Chris Van Dusen. And this is a really funny book, and I hope you like it. I'm not going to read the whole thing today. You'll have to come tune in tomorrow for more. So Mercy Watson to the Rescue. Chapter 1. Mr. Watson and Mrs. Watson have a pig named Mercy. Each night they sing Mercy to sleep. Bright, bright is the morning sun, sing Mr. and Mrs. Watson. But brighter still is our darling one. Dark, dark is the coming night, but oh, our Mercy shines so bright. And they're tucking her into bed. Are you thinking about what kind of book this might be? This song makes Mercy feel warm inside, as if she has just eaten hot toast with a great deal of butter on it. Mercy likes hot toast with a great deal of butter on it. But when Mr. and Mrs. Watson kiss her goodnight and turn off the light, Mercy's room becomes dark, very dark, and Mercy does not feel warm and butter toasty inside anymore. She feels afraid. One night, after Mr. and Mrs. Watson sang their song about the sun, kissed Mercy goodnight, and turned off the light, Mercy decided something. She decided she would be much happier if she wasn't sleeping alone. So Mercy got out of her bed and went and got in bed with Mr. and Mrs. Watson, and she snuggled up between them. Mercy felt warm inside, as if she had just eaten hot toast with a great deal of butter on it. Chapter 2. Mr. Watson and Mrs. Watson and Mercy were all in bed together. They were all dreaming. Mr. Watson was dreaming of driving a very fast car. Vroom, said Mr. Watson in his sleep. Vroom, vroom. Mrs. Watson was dreaming of buttering hot toast for Mercy. She buttered one piece, and then another piece, and then another. Have some more, dear, Mrs. Watson said in her sleep. Eat up, yum, yum. Mercy was dreaming about hot buttered toast, too. In Mercy's dream, hot buttered toast was piled high on her favorite blue plate, and Mrs. Watson was buttering still more. It was an excellent dream. Mr. Watson said, vroom, vroom. Mrs. Watson said, have some more, dear. Mercy snuffled and chewed in her sleep. Mr. Watson and Mrs. Watson and Mercy were all so busy sleeping that they did not hear the bed creak. They were all so busy dreaming that they did not hear the floor moan. Chapter 3. Boom! A hole opened under the Watsons' bed. Crack! The Watsons' bed fell into the hole. Mr. Watson woke up. Mrs. Watson woke up. Mercy woke up too. "What the?" said Mr. Watson. "Oink," said Mercy. "It's an earthquake!" shouted Mrs. Watson. "It's the end of the world!" Nonsense, said Mr. Watson, but he didn't sound very sure. He sounded frightened. Mercy, however, was not frightened. Mercy was hungry. "Oink," said Mercy again, and she moved to the end of the bed. Boom! Crack! The bed fell a little farther into the hole in the floor. "Don't move!" shouted Mr. Watson. "Whatever you do, don't move!" Mr. Watson and Mrs. Watson and Mercy held very still. Mrs. Watson started to cry. "I know exactly what we must do," said Mr. Watson. "We must call the fire department. They will rescue us." "But you said we should not move," said Mrs. Watson. "How can we call the fire department if we cannot move?" Mercy recalled her lovely toast-filled dream. She wondered if there was any toast in the kitchen. While Mr. Watson and Mrs. Watson were arguing, Mercy hopped off the bed. Boom! Crack! "Look!" said Mrs. Watson. "Mercy has escaped." "She's going to find help," said Mr. Watson. "She is going to alert the fire department." Mercy left the bedroom at a gallop. She was in a hurry. She was on her way to the kitchen. She was looking for some toast. Chapter 4. In the kitchen, Mercy sniffed the table. She sniffed the kitchen counters. She sniffed the floor, but there was no toast. There was not even a crumb of toast. Mercy's stomach growled in disappointment. Boom! Crack! "Help us!" Mrs. Watson called. Mercy thought very hard. Where could she get a snack? And then the answer came to her. Baby Lincoln always had sugar cookies. Baby Lincoln lived next door, and Baby Lincoln liked to share. All right, we're going to stop there for today. Mercy Watson to the rescue. So I think you guys are already figuring out that this is a fake fiction book. It's made up, it's a story, and it is fantasy because people don't usually have pigs sleep in their bed and they don't butter toast for them and let them eat off plates. So that's your reading story for today. We'll continue on with that story tomorrow, and then we will summarize that story and put the events in order when we are done. Today, in your journal, I want you to think about your science that we have learned so far, and I want you to write for me whether you would rather hibernate for the winter or migrate for the winter. Are you going to sleep through the winter, or are you going to go somewhere else that's warmer and there's more food and just a little bit better for the animals? I don't know if you would need that, but could be fun. So I want you to think about that, and that's your first journal writing for me today. And I'll be back to talk about science with weathering and erosion in a little bit. Bye, guys. Jasper, I miss you. Hope you're smiling.